Well, let's jump in, my friends. How lovely to see you all, and how good it is to be together. We are delighted to continue our weekly meetup of sustaining practices for perilous times, and glad that you have found your way to us. We are here each Monday, or excuse me, each Wednesday, listening to wise and talented folks from across the country talk about the kinds of practices that are sustaining them right now. We will open it up here with the Reverend Dr. Chaz Howard, University Chaplain at University of Pennsylvania, and soon to be the Vice President of, I've forgotten it, Community something, Equity. At any rate, we're delighted to see the ways in which Chaz's work is being valued and taken seriously by his colleagues, and so delighted to hear. We will open it up after Chaz has shared with us a little bit for just a couple of moments of question and appreciation, and we'll be on our way about 3:20, and off we go. So with that, I'm going to mute myself. Oh, and our sponsors, sorry, necessary to say. Bucknell Religious and Spiritual Life. I'm Kurt Nelson, Director of Religious and Spiritual Life, Chaplain at Bucknell, in partnership with my good friend and colleague Sam Spears from Vassar Office of Religious and Spiritual Life and Contemplative Practices, our newly formed Singular Professional Association, Axel, as well as the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab, based out of Brandeis, and others are our wonderful co-sponsors for this endeavor. And with that, please, Chaz, take us away.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's so good to see your faces, many that I've known for a good long time, and many new faces, new friends. This is life, and maybe one of us will end up doing a talk on this as a spiritual practice that's kind of getting us through. Not necessarily Zoom. I'm kind of zoomed out in a sense, but I think the gift of seeing faces that I haven't seen and that I miss. And so there's something sweet about that. I too wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who's had a hand in making this series happen, whether it's Kurt and Sam or Stephanie or all the Axel people. I told my spouse the new acronym from what used to be Akira Nakuk, and I said Axel, and she said, as in Axl Rose, and I was like, different feel than Guns N' Roses. But as powerful and as striking, I think, as GNR. I wanted to do a preface kind of story about my beginning in chaplaincy before I talk about one of the practices that's sort of kept me going, or maybe that's taught me the most during the last couple months. And like many of you, during seminary, I was charged with doing CPE, kind of clinical pastoral education. In fact, someone from my original CPE site's on the call right now. And that very first week, I remember going in wide-eyed and excited and nervous, and I still had hair back then, and so I was still very young. And on day one, we were asked to sort of shadow one of the current chaplains there. So we were summer interns, and in order to kind of get your legs, you follow one of the full-time professionals who works there year-round. And so I was assigned to a gentleman named Randy. And I remember kind of just like literally tagging along with him as he made the rounds in the hospital. And this is back in the beeper days. And so he would get a page to go upstairs and would talk to someone who was feeling lonely. And he would sort of sit, and he had a great bedside manner. Just sort of really sat, was a good listener. And I remember really soaking that in, his ability to sort of look someone in the eye and nod and make them feel seen and heard and loved in hard moments. But then there'd be another page, and we'd go upstairs to someone who was nervous before a surgery, and I'd see him sort of sit down and pray with someone who didn't come from his tradition. I remember thinking, oh, this sort of model of loving one's neighbor. But as the evening progressed, it sort of got faster and faster. And then we remember going into another floor where someone had come in from a broken leg. And that was pretty brief because we had to go to the labor and delivery floor because something was going on there too. And then finally we get a page, and this is around like 9 o'clock at night, to someone, family had said goodbye to a loved one And I followed Randy in there, and he offered blessings and gave what was like a form of kind of a last rite, sort of prayer, sort of sacrament of the sick kind of thing. And the loved one passed away. And this one pushed me. This touched a nerve in me because the person who died looked a lot like one of my relatives. And so I was kind of wet-faced and teary-eyed when we left the room after we said goodbye. And Randy turned to me and said, "How you doing? How's that been for you?" I said, "Man, that one hurt. You know, that looking at the woman in the bed, she looked a lot like my mother." And I didn't even finish the sentence when the beeper beeped again. So I wiped my face, and it was a trauma. It was an emergency. Our little like helicopter was flying and bringing a car accident victim there. And we're sort of sprinting downstairs in kind of the maze that leads to the emergency room. And we're walking down, and I sort of out of breath say, "Randy, this place is out of control, man. This whole night is out of control." And he stops, and he said something I never forgot. He says, "Not being in control is a part of the discipline." He said, "Not being in control is a part of the discipline." And that's haunted me in so many aspects of ministry. But it's so true in chaplaincy and ministry. It's so true in life. It's certainly true in 2020, where all the things we had planned, I'll speak personally, all the things I had planned, whether it was the vacation that I was supposed to take in California to see my brother this week, or the plans we had for graduation on campus, or the camps that my girls were planning on going to, or other sort of major transitions, all that has sort of been at best paused, at worst canceled. It just feels so out of control. But not being in control is a part of the discipline. One of the ways that I've been sort of holding that is through a morning ritual I do with Langston. And Langston is the name that my girls chose for our little dog. And Langston is about this big. He is tiny. I can hold him from my finger to like half of my arm. And he's a mix of part Dachshund, part Lhasa Apso, part some kind of spaniel, and part poodle. He is a cutie pie. And they named him after the poet Langston Hughes. And they've been begging for years to get a dog. And part of the deal was like, all right, if you all help, you know how the story goes. If you help take care of it, we can get the dog. And like, who walks Langston early in the morning and late at night, which I grumbling agreed to. But now I love it. And so my mornings, I wake up and there's a little furry face that's licking me to kind of wake me up. I haven't had to set an alarm clock in so long because I get this kind of like very wet wake up call in the morning, and it's sort of cute and sort of disgusting. And then I wake up, and the first thing I do is I have a morning sort of prayer. I like to sort of pray through the daily office as a part of my tradition. And that gives me a consistent rhythm and a kind of consistent control when so much feels out of control. And I can't even go to my place of worship every week. When I can't go to the normal kind of prayerful gatherings we have on our campus, it's nice that I can still hold on to this. I can still do my morning prayer and kind of the different prayers throughout the day that are part of the daily office. I control that. I think it seems like that. But after the morning prayer, get my shoes on, and I hook Langston up, and we go outside. And I'm grateful that I live in a space where the numbers are low enough that we can go outside for walks. I'm grateful that I live in a space where the homes are far enough apart that the streets aren't very crowded. I'm aware of that grace and privilege in my life. And we go outside, rain or shine, and I let him lead. When we first got Langston, I had a little path that I like to walk. It's about a 0.7 mile, and I sort of measure this one. It's 0.7 miles around our block. Just enough time for him to kind of do his business, for me to stretch my legs a little bit. I can kind of listen to an okay-ish length podcast or whatever I want to listen to and be back in time and get ready for work and get ready to go anywhere without having to waste too much time. I can do it in about 15 minutes max. But now that we've been home, I find myself not in a rush. I don't have to zip back to shower and shave and get ready for work. And so instead of me leading and kind of tugging, sort of making Langston go where I want him to go, I sort of let him lead. And it's an interesting art. Anyone who sort of has dogs and has walked a dog, it's an interesting thing. You don't want to pull somebody unless you're sort of making sure they don't walk on the street. And some animals have minds of their own. But I kind of get to the end of our driveway and I ask him, Langston, which way would you like to go? And he picks. And he picks a different way every time. Right or left? This morning we went left. We got to an intersection. Langston, which way would you like to go? And this time he kind of blew through the intersection on a, literally today I was thinking about this, on a way we've never walked before. And I've personally been there, but I never walked my dog on this block. And we walked and there were new smells for him to smell and new sights and new dogs for him to kind of get nervous about and feel out and kind of maybe love and maybe hate. And we sort of kept walking and he led me to the closest church to our place. It's about 1.5 miles from our house. It's a beautiful Methodist church right near us. I've never been inside, but really sweet space. A part of the discipline in this practice is me letting go. Sometimes the walk is beautiful with really pretty homes that aren't on my street but are close. Sometimes the walk is a mess with like some mean dogs barking through fences that I did not want to go this way, man. This is nasty. Sometimes it's loud on the kind of busy street that's near us. Sometimes it's a little too far off course where I was trying to go. Sometimes the walk is entirely too short, man. I'm like, this is like a 3-minute walk. I'm not even warm yet, but he wants to kind of turn back and go. And a part of the discipline is naming the fact that I'm not in control. The other aspect of the discipline is something that I'm reminded of. We have a vet school here at Penn. And I sat down with the dean of our vet school a couple of years ago. And we were kind of just shooting the breeze. It was like one of those check-in conversations. And very flippantly, she said something very profound. She said, taking care of animals makes us more human. Taking care of animals makes us more human. Not everyone is in a position to have a pet. I didn't grow up with pets. I didn't want the dog or cat or fish that are in our house right now. I was sort of outvoted to have those things. But it's made me a little more caring. It also reminds me that I'm human. Not just that I'm not a 4-legged friend, but that it's okay to be human, meaning all that comes with humanity. The beauty of it, to hold complex thoughts and to kind of do great creative things, but also like the hard part of being human, of being angry and being scared and being confused and finding joy. I felt all of that the last few months. And walking next to my little Langston, I'm reminded of humanity, sort of anger at leaders and anger at myself for not doing stuff I said I was going to do, and fear about what the fall is going to look like for ministry. You know, the other aspect too of these walks that I cherish. Langston is a slow walker. You know, he's got tiny little legs, and so I'm never like huffing and puffing to keep up with him. He has these tiny little like kind of like here comes Santa Claus legs that sort of just kind of go across like that, and his like 12 steps are like one of my steps. He also is a kind of a wandering dude. You know, so you walk down the street and he's literally going back and forth. And one thing that he does, and maybe there's someone who understands dogs better than me knows why, he stops and smells everything, like everything, including like gross stuff, like tissues that fell out of somebody's pocket. But he usually stops and smells like every flower, every plant, tree. And I usually don't. And I'm thankful for the reminder that sometimes you gotta stop and smell the roses. It's cliche, but it's actually literal on this walk. There's this wonderful person who lives alone down our street who has cultivated the most beautiful little rose garden, and she put it right on the street. It's like this gift she gave to our neighborhood. And Langston stops there every time, and sometimes he pees on it, but usually I like to sort of lean in and not smell his pee, but lean in and sort of smell the roses there. It's such a gift. particularly during a time when like I feel like I'm in crisis mode, when I feel like it's so much survival. Like I'm nervous about our finances, and I'm nervous about a job or the jobs of people on my team, or like health, and making sure like no one gets sick or gets sick again in our family. And I'm focused on that rather than, dude, sometimes it's okay, even in crisis, to stop and smell the roses. Langston sure does. He does it all the time. And he does it in a way, finally, that's unrushed. He's small, but he is a stubborn little guy. And sometimes we're like, all right, buddy, I'm trying, I don't want to rush you back, and I'm letting go with the flow here. I'm letting you lead and all that stuff. But like, I gotta get back. It's breakfast time. I said I was making breakfast this morning, whatever. And he's unrushed, and he's also like unbossed and unbought, to use the old sort of Shirley Chisholm phrase. And like, animals can do that sometimes. I mean, he's a dog. He's like a pack herd animal, and he's stubborn. He is unbossed. It's an interesting tension, this notion of kind of not being in control and allowing spirit to kind of move us, or allowing the kind of wind to blow us where it's going to blow us, but also sort of being free and being unbossed and unbought and unrushed. I don't always feel that, but my little friend reminds me of that. And so as I look back on the last couple months, and as I look ahead to the rest of the summer, if someone were to ask me, what are the most important spiritual practices in your faith, in your walk? I think the right answer is sort of, praying the office and plugging in with my worship community on Sundays virtually. But the true answer is these little walks I'm taking with Langston every morning. Thanks for listening, everybody.